So in the spirit of spring training, we'll do a little pitch hitting today. We'll sub the rookie in for the seasoned vet. We'll talk a little bit today about record keeping and fertilizer laws as it applies here in the state of Ohio. Why are we talking about this? Well, you've seen this slide I don't know how many times in the last 2 days. Really looking at the phosphorus restrictions there in the western Lake Erie Basin and the harmful algae bloom as a result of phosphorus runoff. And you've seen this slide as well. 2017, looking at the severity of the bloom, we had a bloom, actual bloom of 8. They forecasted at 7.5. So we had the 4th largest bloom on record in 2017. Some statistics from the folks at Sea Grant and Heidelberg University. Look in 1960 to 2010, the number of storm runoff events per year is up 67%. The number of spring runoff events, 40%, and annual storm discharge. This is from our municipalities, the folks with the permit to discharge. Storm runoff up 53% in that 40-year period. So really 80 to 90% of loading occurs 10 to 20% of the time. Monitoring the on field edge monitoring sites. This is from Kevin King. So they're looking at both surface runoff and water through the tile drainage and measuring that. They're just into the treatment parts of that research. Edge of field studies. Once again, these are those paired sites from Kevin King. Here's our P Task Force recommendation, and as we can see, some of those sites are well below that recommendation line. Some sites are well above it, both in terms of tile and surface drainage. What is causing the algae blooms in Lake Erie? We've got a whole host of things that have been suggested. Once again, there's no silver bullet to solving this problem. It took a long time to get there. It's going to take time to get Lake Erie back to a manageable level in terms of that algae bloom. So we'll talk a little bit about the laws. Maybe this should have been the first session, nutrient management, talking about the laws that apply to fertilizer application. Senate Bill 150 is that statewide applicator law. Senate Bill 150 is where the yellow card FERT comes from. Senate Bill 1 in 2015 is the application restrictions for the western Lake Erie Basin. And statewide, anybody applying manure from a permitted facility must be certified. What's Senate Bill 1 really restricting in the western Lake Erie Basin? It's that application of fertilizer manure to saturated, frozen, or snow-covered ground. Beyond September 2017, if you own or apply fertilizer in more than 50 acres of crop for agricultural sale, you must be permitted. CCAs and CLMs only need to provide evidence of their credentials with the certificate application and are exempt from this education requirement. And there's really no difference between commercial and private fertilizer applicators as the law applies to record keeping. And we'll recertify every 3 years by attending a 1-hour training fee or a 1-hour training session with the appropriate fees billed to the Ohio Department of Agriculture. This is 2018. We started certification in 2015. This is year 1 of that recert program. So how do we define fertilizer? Anything that contains a recognized plant nutrient element. So if it's got an analysis, it's fertilizer. It does not include lime, limestone, unground bone, vegetable animal manures unless mixed with fertilizer materials or distributed with a guaranteed analysis. Some laws as it applies to direct supervision. Uncertified applicators may apply fertilizer if acting under the instruction of a certified applicator being the person who has the yellow card, and the applicator must be within 25 miles or 2 hours of travel time of the certified person, employed by the same business or farm, and they must be instructed where, when, and how to apply that given fertilizer. So 2015 and 2017, we spent a lot of time in this initial ramp up talking about the 4 R's, right source, right place, right time. Eric Reeker in Fulton County suggests maybe going forward we should be talking about a different set of 4 R's. Regulations, record keeping, recommendations for phosphorus, especially in the western Lake Erie Basin, and some on-farm research and how the research can be applied to a given operation. This is a handout that we use in the recertification process, basically covering the laws for the Western Lake Erie Basin. So fertilizer restrictions in Western Lake Erie Basin, a person may not apply fertilizer defined as nitrogen or phosphorus. This is important. Fertilizer defined as nitrogen or phosphorus under the following conditions: frozen, snow-covered soil when the top 2 inches are saturated, or when the local weather forecast for an application area contains greater than a 50% chance of precipitation exceeding 1 inch in a 12-hour period. Unless it is injected into the ground, if it's frozen or snow-covered, that could be a challenge, incorporated within 24 hours or applied to a growing crop. Similar restrictions for manure, except that weather forecast changes significantly. For manure, it's when the local weather forecast contains greater than a 50% chance of 1/2 inch of rain in a 24-hour period. So we've cut the amount of rain in half, and we've doubled the time. Now it's all based on the math of how much an acre, half an acre inch of manure would be. Once again, same restrictions here at the bottom. We emphasize this a lot. Even if you follow all the restrictions, use the exemptions in that Western Lake Erie Basin, any manure discharge or fish kill supersedes anything from the Ohio Department of Agriculture. At that point, you're under Division of Natural Resources, Division of Wildlife in the event of a fish kill. Here's some definitions as they apply the exemptions. Local weather forecast here at the bottom. ODA strongly recommends using forecasts available from the National Weather Service, weather.gov. If they've got to go back for an inspection or a manure discharge, fish kill, this will be the source that they're going to use to locate that weather forecast. So quick summary of the regulations, especially in the Western Lake Erie Basin. Let's assume there's going to be tighter regulation. Kind of prepare for the worst. Frequently asked question: do I have to keep records if I apply manure or fertilizer with an exemption status? Absolutely. You have to keep records. Another question that's not on here, I guess it is, second one. Frequently asked questions: do I have to apply records of a fertilizer application put on through the planter to the letter of the law? No. We do not have to keep track of starter fertilizer that goes through the planter. But if you're going to keep records on everything else, if you want to calculate your nitrogen use efficiency, maximize efficiency, we certainly suggest that you do keep those planter applied fertilizer records. I don't know if there's any livestock farmers in the room or custom manure applicators. Just a few things to consider here. Will the Western Lake Erie Basin be impaired? Who knows? We've heard some rumblings here lately. We need to build barns to accommodate fast loading and drag lining. If you listen to the weather talks over the last couple of days, our windows to apply manure have become shorter. We have those more intense rainfall events. Be prepared to distribute manure, including neighbors. Is it worth co-owning some manure handling equipment? If you're in a region or a county, township that's got, number of dairies, number of swine operations, will it pay to own that equipment and apply at your convenience as opposed to the custom applicator? We need to site barns assuming that the best environmental and economic way is to use manure on a growing crop. A lot of that Glenn Arnold research, looking at applying manure to the growing crop, side dressing corn, top dressing wheat, those sort of things. 13 things when it comes to keeping records required by ODA. We'll kind of show you what this looks like here on a couple slides. Yep. So obtaining and interpreting the weather forecast for the Western Lake Erie Basin. You can just go to weather.gov, put that in your favorites, enter your zip code. For some of you larger farmers or custom applicators, it needs to be the zip code of the field that you're applying the nutrients in. If you're a custom manure applicator and you live in Defiance and you're applying manure in Napoleon, it needs to be that Napoleon weather forecast. Then we have an hourly weather graph here at the bottom of the page. Here's the example, and I know you guys are back in the cheap seats and it's pretty tough to see. So we run an example for fertilizer application. We got the weather forecast from National Weather Service. Chance of precipitation in the next 12 hours, looking from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. Our highest is 80%. So we have 80% chance of rain, forecast an amount of precipitation in the next 12 hours. Kind of have to do a little bit of addition here, but it turns out to be 0.4 inches. That's in this bottom graph, 0.05, 0.32, 0.07. So can we apply commercial fertilizer based on this weather forecast? 80% chance of rain, 0.4 inches of rain. Yes, because it's not, we haven't reached a rainfall threshold. For manure, we got the same 80%, but we're looking at the 24-hour period, 0.45 inches of rain. We haven't hit that half inch. So once again, the forecast is acceptable for manure application. Once you look this up, print it off and put it in your record book. You know, in the event of an audit or worst case scenario, discharge, fish kill, you've got it right there. This is what the record keeping looks like in paper form, and your local extension office should have copies of this. Basically, need the who, name of the certificate holder, the when, the date of the application, the where, location, the field ID, the size of the field in acres, and the what. What is the fertilizer analysis? What rate are we applying? Total weight or volume applied, and what was the application method? Yes, sir.
Is that form available on the ODA website?
That would have been a good Kevin Elder question. I don't think it is.
Somebody in one of the other sessions said that it was available online on ODA.
It might be. I know it's in our fertilizer handbook that you would have had the first time when you got your yellow card. Yep. Application and weather conditions. Soil condition at the time of application. Was it dry? Was it wet? Was it very wet? Was it normal? Frozen, snow covered, yes or no? Temperature at the time, weather at application. Temperature, precip, was it raining? Was it not? Weather forecast. You can write that in there. If you've got the forecast, you're covered. That's kind of what the paper version looks like. Our colleagues in Knox County and Farm Bureau, Ohio Farm Bureau, have put together an app for record keeping. It's called OnMark, minus the A, Ohio Nutrient, I forget what, record keeping, Ohio Nutrient Mobile Record Keeping. There we go. Approved as part of Senate Bill 150. It works off the cloud. You do need a computer, a desktop, a laptop to set this application up. And it'll download all your records to Excel. And you can use your phone or your iPad or whatever mobile device you have at the field to make your records. So you either go to the Apple Store, iStore, Google Play. Once again, OnMark, ONMRK. You download that on your computer. You have to register, log in. So you do need your fertilizer ID number. Same number of your private pesticide applicator's license if you have that. And you're fertilizer certified. Put your applicator ID in. And it's pretty straightforward once you get into the program. You can add an applicator or two depending on how many applicators you have. Once again, you need to install the application to your device and add a farm or associated field, however many farms or fields you may have. And then you're ready to go with the app. Add all applicators. Add all your employees that may apply fertilizer. That way they have access to the records. Add your farm's name, number, and they need to be added into the application or into your record keeping system in a way that everybody knows how to identify an individual field on any given farm. You know, an example we use in Northwest Ohio is somebody had good grandma's farm, bad grandma's farm, they numbered the fields. Difference was good grandma gave them cookies when they visited. A numbering system, a naming system that is universal for anybody who may be applying a fertilizer. So we get into the app, we've got the fields, we got a farm name, field name, how many acres, and it's pretty user friendly on the phone interface. So you've got your name, the field, Here's that weather forecast. It gives the weather forecast to you. Chance of rain, wind, 12-hour forecast, 56% chance of rain, up to 0.0 so many inches. Fertilizer type. You have manure, fertilizer, you can choose. If it's manure and you have a custom analysis, you can enter that, or if you have a custom fertilizer made. Or we have all sorts of options. 28, anhydrous, urea, ammonium nitrate, MAP, DAP, potash. Soil conditions, is it normal? Is there some water? Once again, if it's that saturated top 2 inches, you need to be operating under one of those exemptions. How was it applied? Surface, surface irrigated, injected, or dry banded into the soil. So here's that frozen snow-covered ground incorporated in 24 hours, applied to the growing crop. Those are the 3 exemptions if you're applying on saturated, frozen, or snow-covered soil. As far as amount applied, we have pounds, gallons, and tons. And you can go back and look up all your previous applications for a given field. So you go back to your computer after you've entered all this into the phone or your iPad, whatever you might use, and it's got everything right there. It's got name, field, application details, weather, and it'll transfer all of this to an Excel file to keep, hard copy records of your fertilizer applications. I guess I'll kind of wrap things up here for Conservation Tillage Conference 2018. We thank you all for coming. We hope you gained a wealth of information to use in your operations. Have a safe trip home, and hope to see you next year, 2019, as far as I know, right here in Ada. So, thanks.